6 Scary TRUE Train Horror Stories. Story 1. The Midnight Passenger. In 2015, Julie, a commuter, regularly took the midnight train home from work. One night, she found herself alone in the carriage, except for a disheveled man sitting at the far end. Ignoring him, she focused on her book. As the train entered a dark tunnel, the lights flickered, and Julie felt a sudden chill. When the lights came back on, the man was now sitting directly across from her. His eyes were vacant, and he wore a sinister smile. Julie's heart raced, but she tried to remain calm. The train exited the tunnel, and the man stood up, walking slowly toward her. Just as she was about to scream, he vanished into thin air. Shaken, Julie later learned from the conductor that a man matching the description had died on the train years ago, and his ghost was said to haunt the midnight rides. Julie never took the midnight train again, haunted by the memory of the ghostly passenger. Story 2. The Phantom Conductor. In 2018, Mark, an avid traveler, decided to take a scenic train journey through the Rocky Mountains. During the trip, he noticed an old-fashioned conductor who seemed out of place. The conductor greeted Mark with a nod and a mysterious smile before moving on. Later, Mark mentioned the conductor to a fellow passenger, who looked puzzled. The passenger explained that the train company hadn't employed conductors in years. Everything was automated. Curious and a bit unnerved, Mark decided to investigate. He found an old newspaper article in the train's library that detailed a tragic accident from the 1930s, where a conductor had died trying to save passengers. His ghost was said to still roam the train, ensuring the safety of travelers. Mark couldn't shake the feeling that he had encountered the phantom conductor, and the experience left him with a chilling story to tell. Story 3. The Haunted Sleeper Car. In 2019, Emma and her husband, James, booked a sleeper car on a cross-country train trip. They were excited for the adventure, but soon regretted their decision. The first night, they heard strange noises, whispers, footsteps, and the sound of something scratching at their door. James got up to check but found nothing. The noises continued, growing louder each night. On the third night, Emma woke up to see a shadowy figure standing at the foot of her bed. She screamed, waking James, and the figure vanished. The next morning, they spoke to the train staff, who admitted that the sleeper car they were in was known to be haunted. Decades ago, a passenger had died mysteriously in that very car, and his spirit was said to linger. Emma and James spent the rest of the trip in a different car, but the memory of the haunted sleeper stayed with them. Story 4. The Ghostly Engineer. In 2020, Ben, a train enthusiast, took a historic steam train tour. He was excited to explore the train and learn about its history. During the ride, he struck up a conversation with the engineer, an elderly man with a deep knowledge of the train's past. The engineer shared eerie stories about the train, including one about a previous engineer who had died in a tragic accident. As the tour ended, Ben thanked the engineer and mentioned him to the tour guide. The guide looked shocked and explained that the engineer he described had been dead for over 50 years. Ben was stunned and realized he had been talking to a ghost. The encounter left him fascinated and terrified, adding a supernatural twist to his love for trains. Story 5. The Abandoned Station. In 2017, Laura, a travel writer, visited an old, abandoned train station in the countryside for a story. The station was rumored to be haunted, but Laura was skeptical. As she explored the crumbling building, she heard faint voices and footsteps echoing through the empty halls. Suddenly, the temperature dropped, and she felt a cold hand brush against her arm. Terrified, she turned to see a ghostly figure in a conductor's uniform standing in the shadows. The figure pointed towards the tracks, and Laura felt compelled to follow. She discovered an old diary hidden under the floorboards, detailing the life of a conductor who had died tragically on the job. Laura's skepticism vanished, replaced by a profound respect for the haunted station and its ghostly inhabitants. Story 6. The Passenger from the Past. In 2016, David, a businessman, frequently traveled by train for work. On one such journey, he noticed a woman in vintage clothing sitting across from him. She seemed out of place but smiled politely when their eyes met. They struck up a conversation and she shared fascinating stories about train travel in the early 1900s. When the train reached David's stop, he turned to say goodbye, but the woman had vanished. Puzzled, he asked the conductor about her. The conductor explained that a woman matching her description had died in a train accident in the early 20th century and was often seen